Today we are going to do a jump test. So here's what I've done. Yesterday I went out and I did a powder charge test. I found that 50.2 was where my node was that I wanted to load to. So everything I load now is going to be to 50.2 or 50.18. And we're going to load everything exactly the same on here, except we're going to adjust our seating depth die. So here's how that's going to work for me. I know that my barrel measured out at 2.544 to the lands. Now, I don't really care how you do it, as long as you get a reading that you feel okay with. But it doesn't have to be exact, because it's almost impossible to get an exact reading. You just want a consistent reading. So I feel good with my 2.544. And all that tells me is that if I want to start my test at 9 thousandths jump, that this round here just has to measure 9 thousandths back of that. And then we're just going to go up on the die here. We're just going to go up 3 notches every 3 rounds. So what I do is, when I'm at that 9 thousandths jump, or at least whatever my thing says is 9 thousandths jump, because again, it doesn't really matter, I just make a note that my die was set to 25 for the initial, for this initial 3 of them. And then I just go up 3, so that when I go and test, let's say this round here, these 3, or this group in here has the tightest group. Well, all I have to do is dial my die back to whatever number this corresponds to. Let's say it's 43 or something, or 42 or whatever. And then take a measurement. Then I'll make a note in my barrel book. So then I have a real accurate measurement, and has nothing to do with jump at that point. It has to do with a known measurement. And that's just how I like to manage my jump. And then, you know, down the line, if I feel like my accuracy is degrading a little bit, I'll load some up at whatever that is. Plus I will, you know, come forward a little bit and do another test. And if the group gets better, then great. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. But keep in mind, after we do the seating depth test, we will also be doing a tuner test, but that'll be another video. Even though I've already done one, I'll follow up on this batch. But we're going to do the seating depth test. I'm going to go out to the range right now. We're going to come back, we're going to load, and we'll show you the results when we're done. Okay, so we are all done. Let's take a look at our numbers. So we just shot 30 rounds. So 30 shots on string, ES of 12, SD of 3.5. We ran 10 different seating depths, and I'm going to go grab the target and we will compare them once I get home. But very happy with that. That's where my ES should be. I'm very happy with 12 on 30 shots. SD is incredibly low at 3.5, and feeling good about that. So let's see what the seating test shows us, and we will go from there. All right, so we're back home and taking a closer look. And here's what I'm looking for. One, I'm going to be looking at my actual, groups, and we're going to be picking a number. But what I also want to do is make sure these groups are based on my barrel finally kind of, speeding up where it needed to be. So for the first couple hundred rounds, I definitely see an increase in speed. It can be anywhere from 50 to 70 feet per second sometimes. And so one, I want to make sure that I've got a good seating depth. Two, I want to make sure that the node that I picked, the powder charge that I chose based on that node, is getting me the velocity that matches where I think I need to be. So I know that when I looked at the data that we had from today on those 30 shots, my average was 2802. Okay, and I know that's really good data because, again, my ES was only 12, my SD was 3.5, and so that gives me a real good indication that that's a very accurate average. And so then what I do is I look at my notes from yesterday when I did my powder charge, and I know that I was at 50.2 here, and my average on 50.2 was 2812, but 50.1 and 50.3 were 2803 and 2810, so I probably had an anomaly in here. I had a little bit more erratic ES. The ES was 14 on my 50.2. And so the reality is that if I were to do this test again, I just know that it would be somewhere between 2803 and 2810, which means that this 2802 number is a pretty safe number at this point. So I feel good about the 50.2. And so now we're going to look at our groups here. Now, if you remember when we were at the range, just anecdotally, you could see kind of near the end we had a little better setup. For those of you that want to know exactly, or at least close to what the jump was, this started at 9,000. So this would be 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, and then 33 and 36. Okay, so you can see that when we are at the, what was it here, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, once we got to 24 and up, my groups got considerably tighter. So as we look at the 9,000s or the 25 number here, a little bit erratic. We had some vertical on 28, 31 tightened up. I mean, it's a beautiful little three-hole, one-hole, but then 34 opened up. Now, you kind of have to, sometimes look at it and say, well, am I reading the data for what it is, or am I going to read more into it? I try to, as much as possible, take the data for what it is, meaning there was some vertical here, centered, some vertical. Now, admittedly, two of these went through one hole because I only have two holes on paper. So, there might have been something that caused it, but I have to take it on face value that it just wasn't a good seating depth. Because when we go to the next one, it's a little bit wonky, and then it starts to tighten up. Now we have a good one-hole group. We have a vertical one-hole group, which I don't love. But then this is really where it starts to get where I am going to be picking a number. So we've got a really nice one-hole group here, and then we've got a nice one-hole horizontal group, which I have no issue with compared to a vertical, and then another one. So this is three really good numbers in a row. So what are we going to do with that? Well, let me try to explain real quick. If we're thinking of the barrel, and this is a very crude representation, although somebody will probably skewer me for it, if we think of the lands being in here, and we have three bullet jumps, okay? So these represent the three different bullet jumps that I think are all really good. So we have the 46, the 49, and 52 number, which represent 36, 33, and 30 thousandths jump. And I'll write that on here just so that for those of you who need to see this kind of number, you'll understand. And what I want to do is, because I know this sort of represents a bracket, if you will. So if we're looking at it, it's sort of like this, right? So there's a bracket of seating depth that I really like. But what I want to do is I want to pick the one that is closest to the lands. That way, any incremental growth still keeps me within this whole seating depth node. If I started out here on the end and it did start to grow and somehow impacted me, I would have nowhere to go back here until I retested. This gives me a very wide, in fact, if you think about it, it's a 9,000ths variance, right? And the reality is it might even be a little higher because we had a great hole there and then a good 2-hole and a 1-hole, which again, I'm taking it for what it is, that I don't necessarily trust it, but the reality is I could have upwards of about a 12,000ths to 15,000 seating depth node. So I want to take whichever one's the closest, which is going to be this number 46. So 46 is going to be right here. It's closest to the lands over here, you know, but still in the seating depth node. So again, the way I do this is I'm going to now dial to 46 on my thing here, and we're good to go. So we're going to load up a bunch of rounds. We are going to go shoot this tonight, and we're going to see what we can do. Now that we've done some of our loading, you can see here, so here's yesterday powder test, what I ended up with for my node number, what the temperature was outside, and then today shot 34 rounds, depth test, and then here's my caliper number, here's my accuracy 1 number. I keep both of them just so that no matter what tool I'm using, I have a reference point. You know, I might be at a match or something and only have one or the other at my disposal. So, or I'm loading here, whatever the case is, I just like having both numbers available. So now I know that, you know, at this particular time, in this temperature range, here's what the load worked for me. And that just gives me a really good point to kind of jump off later if for some reason we get a massive temperature spike or, you know, something like that. At least I know where to move everything. But this is how I do it. This will not change until I see accuracy degrade. I don't chase the lands. This is like Eric Cortina preaches, and admittedly I learned a lot of this from him, is, you know, you find the depth, you use it till it doesn't work anymore, and then you do some testing. So I'm not out there after every 50 rounds or 20 rounds or whatever it is doing some kind of, you know, to the lands test and then adjusting my seating depth. This is what it's going to be until I see the accuracy fail me. Now, the only thing that might change is I still need to do a tuner test. But as it sits, this is dialed in for a 0 tune. And then we will do another test. This is going to be, the next line will be tonight shooting. And then later this week, I'll do a tuner test and make a note there. So let's go shoot a match and have some fun. Had 7 ciders just to get it kind of warmed up a little bit. Was feeling good with the 3X's, went into it. You can see shot 8 here, just went a little bit high, and then we pushed one out here to the left. Otherwise, really great night and a really great way to start our winter league. It's the first week for that. It's 3 months long, and it's going to be a lot of really great shooters and a lot of really great scores. So really happy about starting off like this. I will still go out and do a tuner test this week, probably this weekend maybe, and dial in just a little bit more. This is still a great score, but it's still shooting a half minute plus the flyer up here. This half minute group or vertical really needs to get dialed down. So we're going to go out, we're going to tune it down, see if we can't get shooting a little bit lower. Ideally about a quarter minute, third of a minute, if I can help it. So we'll go out, we'll keep refining it, we'll keep working on it.